completely different.
You know what else made me upset, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's that guy known as Carl Hamburger. Carl Hamburger of Rochester, New York, that hosts the very lowly Who Are These Podcasts. Now, I went to war with him because I interviewed Chad Zumock, who I think is my friend but confuses me, but I love him either way because life's short and whatever. But literally, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Who Are These Podcast people, all they do is copy the Opie and Anthony format of talking about other radio shows or podcasts and making fun of them. But the difference was when Opie and Anthony did it, they were allowed to because, what was it? Oh yeah, they had a successful radio show. And these guys are just trolls online, that their whole audience is trolls. And I was on Reddit and I saw my old boss, Mike Calta, he's doing a podcast now with his wife called Me and My Wife, which is fine. I haven't watched it. I don't know if I'm going to watch it. But Amanda's a funny woman, so I'm sure it's a good podcast, and they have a good rapport. Like whenever I hung out with them, their conversations were funny because they bust each other's balls. And I was like, oh, whatever. They made a podcast. Cool. And I've been seeing it being promoted, and I'm like, that's awesome. Good for them. And then I saw Who Are These Podcasts, and they did a video. They're like, Mike Calta's new podcast is awful. I'm like, bro, Carl, what have you achieved in life? The only thing you did is you're an anonymous troll who talks bad about other people. But then Mike Calta, and I'm not trying to like kiss ass to my old boss. I don't give a fuck what he thinks of me. But you got my old boss who has 1 in 10 cars, 2554, listening to him. He's the biggest show in Tampa and one of the biggest shows in Florida. And he has worked his ass off since 1989. And I'm not saying that just because you're on the radio, that means you're better than podcasts. Because I do a podcast. But he's worked his ass off to get to where he's at. And then you're just going to say, oh, the podcast is awful? What do you contribute? All you do is talk about other people, bro. You're a bitch. Can you imagine that? That you're like a little high school bully, but you were probably made fun of in high school. So that makes you even more of a bully. You're a bitch. You're a beta male. I'm not saying Mike Calta's innocent by any means, but he's like putting his, I don't want to say his body out there. That sounds ridiculous, but he's really laying it out there, doing a podcast with his wife. That's a vulnerable thing. I'm not saying he should be applauded for it. But like he's doing something innovative. All you do is trash people and Anthony Cumia's ass. Because you're a bitch.
Happy Hour. Happy Hour.